Hello and welcome to the program. I am Folashade Ogurinde. For many Nigerians, the coup in neighboring Niger is a distant political upheaval that should not upset Nigeria's socio-political stability. But for economic watchers, its implications are far-reaching. It is estimated that Nigeria could expend trillions of naira if it decides to intervene militarily, a heavy cost to the nation's fragile economy. On Wednesday, the 26th of July, Abdurrahman Chiani, head of Niger's presidential guard, overthrew democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum and named himself head of state of the West African country 2 days after. In a swift reaction, Ecowas, the AU, France, the US, and other international organizations condemned the coup, with regional bloc Ecowas threatening military intervention and mandating the coup plotters to reinstate Bazoum within 1 week. This deadline has now elapsed since Sunday, 6th of August, and Niger Junta have announced the closure of the country's airspace until further notice. So what does this mean for Nigeria's international travel industry, and can Nigeria afford a regional war? For more analysis, Dr. Muda Yusuf, the CEO Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, joins me now. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, there are so many implications of a military intervention in Niger by President Bola Tinubu's led Ecowas. But let's begin from the macroeconomic level.
Well, any decision to embark on military intervention in Niger will have very serious macroeconomic challenge for Nigeria. First, we know that the macroeconomic environment is currently very fragile. Our exchange rate is extremely weak and volatile. Our reserves are weak. Our balance of payments position is also very fragile. So if we embark on any military action, it will weigh heavily on our external sector. I'm talking now about our balance of payments, our reserves, and our exchange rate. I say this because prosecution of a war is highly foreign exchange intensive. What it will take are not domestic currencies, it's going to be largely foreign currency. And if you have to continue to commit resources to it, then it will take a huge toll on both our reserves and our currency position. And we are just still struggling with the volatility in our foreign exchange markets. So it will not be in our interest, to embark on that kind of operation at this time. We should also learn from experience. We had Ecowas in 1990, and Nigeria also led the peacekeeping force at that time in Liberia. The cost to us of that exercise was $8 billion US. And we thought it was going to be a walk in the park, maybe something that will last maximum of a year. But the intervention lasted 7 years. So you can determine when to begin a military intervention, but you cannot determine when you are likely to exit. And that is the nature of war. I had a similar experience in Sierra Leone, where we committed about $4 billion US. Again, that lasted about 4 to 5 years. So we are not in a position at all to begin to commit that kind of resources. And because all the other Ecowas countries are looking up to us, to foot the bill of this military campaign. So we need to be very careful how we go about it, and as much as possible, exhaust all diplomatic options before we even contemplate the idea of military involvement in this operation.
Now, talk us through how the expenditure on military intervention will affect Nigeria's key economic indicators.
Well, first, we are just still trying to get out of the fiscal challenges that we have had over the last 10 years or so. We know what our debt level is. We know what the fiscal deficit is. We know what the inflation situation is. Any attempts to go out of our way to incur additional expenditure, because if you go to war now, we'll be looking at spending maybe additional $2 to $3 billion annually. And for an economy that is grappling with high fiscal deficit, high debt burden, that will further exacerbate our fiscal situation. The debt level is likely to increase further. The fiscal deficit is likely to increase. And the moment these variables begin to point northwards, then what we're likely to see is the effect on the macroeconomic environment in terms of, first, we're likely to see a further depreciation in our exchange rates. We are likely to see a further depreciation or depletion in our reserves. That, of course, is not a good thing. And we're also likely to see a much higher inflationary pressure, because the higher your deficit, the higher the likelihood that the inflationary pressure will begin to aggravate or increase. So all of this macroeconomic instability and those variables will now begin to turn negative for the economy, which of course is not a good thing. And from the point of view of investment, there is no investor that wants to go into an economy that is in war. Even if we think we're a strong partner, but no economy we want, because it creates a whole lot of uncertainty around that country, around the investment, and around the growth outlook for that economy. So again, from an investment point of view, it's likely to slow down investment significantly. I'm talking now about domestic investment and foreign investments. Then it's also going to affect trade. We undertake a lot of trade with our neighbors. And Niger is our main neighbor in the northern part of the country. We share almost 1,600 kilometers of border with Niger, and a whole lot of trade, most of it informal trade, takes place between Nigeria and Niger. Now, even right now, with the closure of the border, many Nigerian traders are already feeling the heat. Many of them are exporting a lot of agricultural products. Some of these products are perishable items. All of those exports are now stuck in the border. We saw it on television. We saw the very lengthy queue of trucks that are about to leave the country for Niger and the other parts of Africa through Niger. So it's going to cripple trade. And when we talk about Ecowas, one of the key mandates of Ecowas is trade, it's economic integration. So the moment we go into a military campaign or military intervention, it's going to lead, rather than promote, economic integration, it's going to lead to economic fragmentation. The whole region will become fragmented. We already see a number of countries where we have military leaders like Burkina Faso, like Mali and Guinea, who are already, pledging their solidarity to the Nigerian, to the military junta in Niger. So you can imagine the kind of fragmentation that this will cause within the sub-region. So from the point of view of trade, it's going to also hit the economy very, very badly. And this is not the kind of thing we deserve at this time. The economy is just about to stabilize. So if we throw in this kind of variable, it could disrupt the entire course of economic recovery for us. So those are the dimensions of impact from an economic point of view that and a military option in terms of military intervention in Niger could cause for the Nigerian economy.
Now, the aviation sector has begun to feel the early effects of the face-off between Ecowas and Niger with the closing of its airspace.
Well, the impact on the aviation sector will be in the form of higher costs of airfares. Because normally aircraft fly on a straight line as much as possible. So, and because Niger is our border to the north, so any flights going out of the country will not be able to move just straight away through the Nigerian airspace. Have to navigate and move around maybe to Senegal and some other places, which will elongate the route of travel. The travel time will be longer, and the cost of fuel to the aircraft will also be much higher. And invariably, that may translate into higher, fares, the cost of air ticket and all of that, particularly those who are traveling towards the northern parts of Northern Hemisphere, Europe, America, and the rest of them. So it's going to have that implication of additional costs for the aviation industry because of the longer routes that will now have to be taken to avoid the airspace of Niger.
Now, Nigeria and Niger share a wide border space, posing a threat to Nigeria's fragile security situation. How do you see this panning out?
Yes, it has implications for the security situation. We are grappling with very serious security situation at this time. And ideally, we need our neighbors to work collaboratively with us for us to be able to deal with this security situation. I'm talking about all this banditry, terrorism, and so on and so forth. The way to fight this battle is to work with our neighbors. But now that we are in conflict with our neighbors, that may make us even more vulnerable in the entire sub-region because we need that unity to be able to tackle terrorism. And the more disturbing part is the geopolitical dimension of the war, because in the entire Sahel region, there is very serious geopolitical competition between Russia and the West. I'm talking of Europe and America. So if you have that kind of thing taking place in the Sahel, and we get involved militarily in any encounter in that region, the consequences may be far, far reaching. The challenge and the kind of opposition we face will be a lot more, and it will stretch our resources significantly. So it will make us a lot more vulnerable in terms of insecurity because of what is happening in the Sahel and the fact that the Sahel region has now become the biggest hotbed of terrorism globally. I'm talking of Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, those axes. So this is not the time to get involved in any military action in that space at all, because it will open up the space for a lot of terrorists, to gain entry under the guise of the war to begin to commit all manner of atrocities. And these terrorists have all manner of military backing, the dimension of which we may not even be able to determine at this stage. So the risk is very high that the security situation may deteriorate.
Now, one of the roles of Ecowas is to foster political stability in the West African region. But are there any consequences if Ecowas decides to back off on its plan of a military intervention?
Well, from the Nigerian point of view, we don't have much at stake if the military junta remains in Niger. After all, we have had the military in Chad at some point. We have the military in Burkina Faso. We have the military in Mali. The impact on us is not so significant. As long as trade is going on, particularly because of our citizens in the shared border with Niger Republic. Once that is on, there's nothing so significant. What Nigeria is about to do and what Ecowas is about to do is to ensure that in the interest of stability of the region, and because of perception of democracy as the best form of government, as a region, we seem to be working collectively to ensure that we preserve the democratic ideas in the region, so that we also don't create a perception in the region that this region is unstable, it's populated by military leaders or military regimes and all of that, which is not good for our image as a regional bloc. But apart from that, in terms of direct impact on us or any serious effect on our strategic interests, there is nothing so serious in terms of impact or interest that is at risk if we leave them to be. What we are just doing is just to demonstrate that given our status in Africa and given the fact that our president is now the chairman of Ecowas, we needed to ensure that we bring everybody into line to toe a democratic line, democratic trajectory. That is what we are just about to do. But in terms of significant direct impact on Nigeria, I don't think there's any direct significant impact on us.
Well, Dr. Muda Yusuf, the CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, thank you very much for your insight. We'll take a break here, but Money Matters returns shortly. Do stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Since the launch of the e-Naira in late 2021, adoption rates for the digital currency have not met expectations. As a solution, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, is taking measures to improve adoption rates for its central bank digital currency known as the e-Naira. According to the CBN, a new key feature will play a pivotal role in enhancing adoption. While previous versions included QR codes, this new feature is expected to significantly improve user experience and encourage wider acceptance of the CBDC. The CBN has also approved the use of e-Naira for foreign remittances by international money transfer operators in an effort to expand the CBDC's use cases and address dollar shortage in the country. Well, for more analysis, Adedeji Adedoyin, Managing Partner, Blue Rave Limited, joins me now. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, walk us through the role of these new features in boosting the adoption of the e-Naira.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I think the CBN has been doing a number of changes to the e-Naira over the last few months. I think one of the key issues we've seen is the fact that a lot of people, the adoption rates of the e-Naira has not gone as well as the government and the CBN had hoped. So I think in the last few months, they've been doing a review and seeing what else can be done. So of course, for example, the angle of remittances and also trying to open up the e-Naira to more fintech related solutions. I think it's a way to go. But then I think we would see, I think ultimately the important thing is what can people build on the e-Naira? Okay, so existing fintech companies, what can they build on the e-Naira? So I think that's like where the question is. So they can make all these changes, but ultimately those that will create the final products for consumers and customers to use ultimately are the ones that will determine what they can build, and whatever they build on it would determine how much adoption the e-Naira would take over time.
The CBN has also approved the use of e-Naira for foreign remittances by international money transfer operators. How effective do you think this strategy is?
Well, I think it's a good strategy given the volume of remittances that we have. If there's a good case use, I think a lot of remittance companies will likely fall into this. They will likely come into this sector and use this solution. So I think it's just the CBN trying to look for case use, because don't forget, one of the reasons why we've had the low adoption of the e-Naira is because generally people don't see a good case use to use it. because most of what we currently do, most of the financial transactions we can do directly with the banks. And so there's really no big difference between the in-era and what we've been doing presently. So until we get to that position where Nigerians and our citizens can see a more robust case use, I think they might not likely see any changes, any major changes.
Now, why do you think the INR struggle to enjoy a wider range of adoption by Nigerians?
Okay, I think ultimately the reason is because there's no strong case use. There's no strong case use for the INR as it is today. Okay, so we don't really have any. Almost everything we do presently, we can do without the INR. That's the challenge. Okay, so we can do it without the INR. I need to pay somebody. I don't need the INR to do that. I can do that on my own without the INR. So customers or consumers do not see any reason to use the INR, and that's why we have not seen a strong case use that, okay, if you use the INR over regular banking systems, this is the benefit you will get. A very typical example is we have a number of POS operators today that are doing faster and better transactions, and we can see the rate of adoption, okay, of some of these POS operators. We have about 2 or 3 operators that are currently operating, and they have very fast transaction speed and reliable transaction speed. So that creates a use, because what people need right now is faster transactions, is better transactions, and less failed transactions. So I believe that with the INERA, if the CBN can work with fintech companies to create a system, to look into it, bring fintech companies together, see how solutions can be built to facilitate transactions across the country, and also bring people that are unbanked, okay, because that's still one of the key areas that I think we've not still looked into.
Now, you've said that the INR is struggling because it does not offer anything different from other means of electronic transfer. So is it safe to say that, the CBN is beating a dead horse?
No, I won't say that. I think the approach to the INR was the issue we had. Ultimately, the CBN cannot create consumer end products for citizens to use. Ultimately, they would have to create solutions. I mean, all they can do is to create a framework that other service providers and solutions providers can build on. But the challenge we've had is those that will build the end products of these solutions, I've not seen any strong case use to use the INERA for a number of things they do. So until we are able to get to that position, because I feel that the challenge we have is the CBN is not, in a way, sorry to say, not listening to what people are saying. Okay, and what I feel the issues are, which I feel is the INERA can address. But maybe right now we've not created that framework yet to address it. Is number one. How can we have cheaper transactions? People want cheaper transactions. So can the INERA help Nigerians do transactions cheaper? That was one. Number two, can the INERA provide a framework that allows for seamless transactions? Seamless transaction in the sense of, I want to transfer money, I want to pay, I do payments, and is fast enough. Within seconds of doing my transaction, I also want to be able to see the result of the transactions, and also reduce failure of transactions. So if I send money to you, with the regular banking system we have right now, and which we are not doing much to fix, we still have a lot of failed transactions. Okay, so if they send money to you, I've been debited, but I've not seen a lot. So we still have all those things. So if the INERA can address some of these prime areas, I think we should be able to get a good adoption rate. Then I think some of the other sections which I feel the INERA should be able to solve is those that are unbanked. Can we address those that are unbanked with the INERA? So work with the telecoms to see how we can combine the telecoms with the INERA. And I think with the licenses that the telecoms have, MTN, Airtel, with the licenses they have now to operate mobile money, I think it's a very, very good opportunity for the CBN to come in and see how they can help create solutions with these partners, telecoms partners, to be able to address people that are not in the banking system, to see how we can bring them into this structure. And over time, they can transit into the regular financial system. So I think it's a way, I think these are some of the ways I feel we can adopt it. For remittances, I think it's okay. But like I said, it largely depends on the remittance companies. If they see a strong case use to use the e-naira, and it makes things cheaper for them and probably gives them more profit, I think they would adopt it also. So we'll see how it goes. And ultimately, what people just want is just cheaper transactions, faster transactions, more reliable transactions. I think that's like the core of what a lot of Nigerians do need right now. So if the e-naira can solve that problem, I think it's going to get a lot of attraction.
Adedeji Adedoyin, Managing Partner, Blue Rave Limited, thank you very much for your time and your contribution. And it's a wrap on the program. See you again next time. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Bye for now.